Many girls dream of becoming princesses and living in a magical castle when they are children. Kelsey and Eva fulfilled their dream, but they forgot that fairy tales have not only handsome princes, but also villains. Before we dive into the investigation, let's go back a few centuries. What comes to mind when you think of the world of Disney? Most people probably think of Cinderella's castle in the Magic Kingdom. This magical structure is indeed the main logo of the Walt Disney Animation Company. This fairy tale castle, which stands at the center of the theme park, has something fascinating about it. When you first see the carved towers and stone decorations, you realize that you have left the real world behind. However, few people know that Cinderella's castle was inspired by real and fictional castles. One of these castles is Neuschwanstein Castle, located on a rocky hill at the foot of the Alps in the far south of Germany. It was commissioned by King Ludwig II, and this building has a history that is far from fairy tale-like. Although Ludwig II was sometimes called the fairy tale king, most people considered him mad. He ascended the throne in 1864 at the age of 18. The young man did not like formal social events or participating in state affairs. Instead, he preferred a life of seclusion, with true interests in art, music, and architecture. One day, the king decided to flee from everyone else and build his small fairy tale castle on the edge of a 92-meter-high rock. Ludwig's fantasies originated from his childhood when he was a little boy fascinated by medieval legends. After becoming king, he decided to fulfill his dream and build a castle in the style of medieval knights' castles. King personally led the construction project, constantly making changes and spending vast sums of money. At that time, the country was involved in hostilities, but Ludwig was only interested in his own fantasies. For his descendants, he remained a mystery. At night, he dressed in medieval clothes and walked in the mountains to admire his work from afar. The castle was supposed to have 200 rooms, including the king's apartments, a throne room, a theater with a large stage, and the servants' quarters. From the outside, Neuschwanstein consists of several separate buildings adorned with numerous towers, gables, balconies, and sculptures. All this splendor was never completed. The king moved into the unfinished castle and spent only 172 days there. In June 1886, he was declared insane and deposed from the throne. 3 days later, Ludwig II and his doctor went for a walk and were never seen again. Their bodies were later found in a nearby lake. For historians, it remains a mystery whether it was foul play or the king's decision to commit suicide. 2 months after King Ludwig II's death, Neuschwanstein Castle was open to the public for a fee to repay the numerous loans taken out to build this extraordinary structure. Since then, Neuschwanstein has become one of the world's biggest tourist attractions, especially in Germany. The castle has already been visited by more than 61 million people, with over 1 million tourists visiting each year, and even more in the summer months. Everyone wants to see the real-life Cinderella castle. Despite its strange history, it is truly beautiful. The best view of the majestic structure is from the Marienbrücke, which crosses the Polat Gorge at a height of 92 meters. Below, a waterfall rushes its water through a massive ravine, and behind the bridge begins the so-called King's Way. From there, Neuschwanstein is well visible, and standing at that height, one has a breathtaking view of the surrounding landscape. The rocky facade, round towers, and slender balconies of the castle give an impression of magic. It is hard to imagine that this creation was made by human hands. Prototype is about twice as large as Cinderella's castle in Disneyland. In 2023, the beautiful surroundings of Neuschwanstein became a crime scene. News reported that 2 Asian tourists from Illinois, USA, were allegedly attacked and thrown off a cliff. This did not happen in a creepy fairy tale, but in real life. Although more than 6 months have passed since the tragedy, the media still report little about the incident. The trial is not yet complete, and the hearing is scheduled to take place in Germany. It is already known what happened in a place that is always busy, and the story has already shocked many people. The Marienbrücke, named after the king's mother, was originally made of wood. In 1866, it was replaced by metal structures. Ludwig II admired his creation alone from here. Today, the bridge is always crowded. There is an interesting detail. Newlyweds like to hang lovelocks on this bridge. The castle itself is undoubtedly beautiful, but there are no romantic stories associated with it. King Ludwig II avoided women all his life, categorically refused to marry, and devoted himself to art and dreams. Although much more has been said about the king, it is known for sure that he led a reclusive life. From this bridge, one has a beautiful panoramic view of the Cinderella Castle. On June 14, 2023, a Wednesday at 11 a.m., many people were already waiting their turn, although it was midweek. Tourists stood shoulder to shoulder in line to photograph the castle from the best angle. Among the many people with phones in hand were two young Asian American women, 22-year-old Kelsey Chang and 21-year-old Ava Liu from Illinois. The women patiently waited their turn to go on this famous bridge. There are many hiking trails around the castle, but the best spot for photos is, of course, the Marienburg. People squeezed past each other just to get a good photo of their trip. It did not bother anyone that there were some unknown faces in the background of the photo. Everyone wanted to admire the peculiar castle and take home many new impressions, because in real life, the building looked even more beautiful than in the pictures on the internet. Eva and Kelsey walked along various paths around the castle, breathing in the fresh mountain air and listening to tourists from different countries speaking their languages. All this added more mystique to the place and immersed them in the atmosphere of a magical fairy tale. There was an incredible energy, and many different groups were on the move. Families with children, couples in love, groups of young men and women. As Eva and Kelsey roamed around the castle looking for the perfect shot, they heard a man's voice addressing them. The man asked if the friends were American. The man seemed to be a typical American tourist. He wore sneakers, a dark t-shirt, beans, and a baseball cap. He had a small goatee and a beaming smile that instantly made him likable. Among many people, it is easy to recognize people from different countries even without knowing their language. These are, of course, all stereotypes, but nevertheless, the Chinese are generally energetic and loud and travel in large groups. Americans are smiling and outgoing. Such features make it easy for people from the same country to recognize their fellow citizens in large crowds. Kelsey and Eva turned to the man in his 30s and confirmed that they were indeed from America. The man brightened up even more and said he was from Michigan. They had a casual, non-binding conversation. The man behaved quite naturally. He did not ask intrusive questions, but seemed genuinely happy to meet tourists from his country. When traveling abroad, there is a certain feeling of camaraderie when dealing with strangers from your own country. In any case, the man seemed very nice. He knew Germany well, as he said he had traveled a lot. The man told the young women about the most popular places in this country that are definitely worth a visit. He described the national dishes and assured them that they must taste them to enjoy the atmosphere of Germany. The man did not hesitate to offer to show them a secret spot from which you can get the best view of Neuschwanstein Castle and where there are hardly any tourists. This tempting opportunity to photograph without any faces in the background was very interesting for the women. The man explained that a local had shown him this part of the path on his last visit. It is hardly known to foreigners. They hesitated a bit, but when they looked around, they decided there was no reason to worry. The sun was shining outside, children were running and laughing, and numerous tour groups were walking around. In the summer months, about 6,000 people visited the castle daily. The special thing about the hiking trails around Neuschwanstein Castle is that there has never been a fatal accident despite the apparent danger. It was frightening because of the height, as the area is surrounded by mountains and sharp rocks, but otherwise, the tour was quite safe. Even if there was an unexpected situation, the friends could always run away or call for help because there were many people nearby. The man was also nice and friendly to them, did not seem threatening. Kelsey and Eva followed their new acquaintance up the footpath, the little-known viewpoint. Around 2:30 p.m., they stood at a small curve hidden by dense trees. Due to the natural curve, it was difficult to see what lay ahead and what was behind. At this point, the man's behavior changed completely. From a nice guy, he instantly turned into a real monster. Kelsey walked a bit ahead when she heard a scream. When she turned around, she saw the man trying to brutally assault her friend. She ran toward her compatriot, let Eva fall to the ground, and began pulling him away. It worked. The man let go of Eva, raised his hands to show he was giving up, stood where he was. Kelsey hoped that now he would realize that they would not be easy to deal with, that they would start screaming and calling for help, and that he would have to retreat anyway. But instead of running away, he turned his attention to Kelsey. He wrapped his arms around her neck and began squeezing with all his might, push her to the edge of the cliff. The woman gasped as she tried to pull the man's hands away from her neck. She did not notice that she was getting closer to the cliff step by step. When she was only a few centimeters from the edge, the stranger simply pushed her back with all his might. Chang flew 50 meters down. That's the same as throwing someone off a balcony on the 15th floor. The worst part was the rocky side of the cliff, and the person who fell could easily land on a sharp rock or fall even further to the bottom of the ravine. The man then turned to Eva and tried to rip her clothes off to abuse her. She was in shock at what had just happened, but did not want to give up without a fight. The young woman fought back as best she could, scratching his face and leaving bright red welts on his cheeks and forehead. Eva met the same fate as her friend. The attacker hit her with all his might and threw her down the rocky slope. She fell to the ground next to her friend. For some unknown reason, total stranger decided that he had the right to use the women for a brief pleasure and to satisfy his base instincts, and then threw them away, something unnecessary. When the news of this case spread later, it sparked a strong reaction from internet users. People were so outraged by the man's impudence that they offered to do the same to him. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. So who is this man who took the lives of others? Troy Bowling was known in his neighborhood for walking his cat on a leash. The 30-year-old man's favorite activity was walking in Lincoln Park, Michigan, where he lived with his brother. He was a quiet, unremarkable man about whom few people knew anything. None of the neighbors ever talked to him because he showed no interest in conversation. When Troy sat on the porch of his house, he carefully averted his gaze from passers-by so as not to attract attention. It was known that he had been briefly arrested for fraud in 2016, but this charge was eventually dropped. He spent his free time at his computer, playing Dungeons & Dragons. He could go unseen for weeks, and no one knew if he was home or away. In general, no one was very interested in the man. Troy also chatted with several women on the internet and told them how much he liked Asian women. Corresponded with a lady from Thailand. They met in a video game and quickly found a common language. To his online girlfriend, he seemed like a nice, very sincere guy. While in the mountains, he constantly sent her messages and pictures of the castle panorama. She never noticed any signs of abnormal behavior in him. Then he sent her an ominous photo of two people crouching on a small platform overlooking the castle. The place seemed secluded enough. Judging by this photo, he probably scouted the area in advance to look for secluded spots hidden from tourists. Troy had been talking to the Thai woman till the moment he tried to attack the two Asian students. Eva Liu never dreamed of a fairy tale prince. She knew from a young age what she wanted. She worked tirelessly to achieve her goal, relying only on herself. She had a twin sister named Alice. They both wore the same clothes and often performed the same trick at family gathering. One sister played the piano with her left hand and the other with her right. Despite their striking similarities, the sisters had completely opposite personalities. Alice was as shy as Eva was sociable. They both grew up in Canada and then moved to the United States. Eva was successful in one of the country's most prestigious programs, studying computer science at the University of Illinois, which ranks 5th nationwide in computer science. Before starting her first real job in July, Eva spoke to one of her best friends, Kelsey, Chang, and they traveled together to Europe. The young women knew they had careers ahead of them, and could not foresee when they would next go on vacation together. Kelsey was originally from Blooming, Illinois. She too graduated in May and received her bachelor's degree in computer engineering. Together with Eva, she devoted herself entirely to her studies to secure her future and deserved 3 weeks of relaxation and new experiences. The women carefully thought out and planned their travel route. They deliberately chose popular places with many tourists, which to some extent ensured their safety. The first stop was Budapest, then Vienna, Prague, and Germany. Their last travel destination before returning home was to visit Cinderella's famous Neuschwanstein Castle. Kelsey, Chang, and Eva Liu spent their last night in a twin room on the ground floor of a cheap hotel. They had breakfast together, packed their things, and put them in the luggage room to pick up after their trip. Along with other visitors, they took the bus to the castle. On the same day, around 3 p.m., the castle visitors standing on the Marienbrücke suddenly noticed a bright red helicopter circling the sky over the ravine. One by one, the tourists turned their heads towards the steep slope a little further along the footpath. They all lost interest in the old castle they had been so eager to photograph moments earlier. Now they were more interested in what had happened. They directed their cameras towards the helicopter and tried to zoom in to see the area at the foot of the mountain. Suddenly, someone spotted 2 girls lying on the steep rock face, one of them wearing a light blue top, moving and clinging to a fallen tree while the other lay motionless on the ground. The crowd began whispering in their native languages. At that moment, the helicopter hovered in the air and rescuers began descending from it on a rope. They landed on a heavily wooded rocky cliff. It seems that the mission to rescue the 2 women was very difficult and dangerous due to the inaccessible location where the students were. Regular rescue vehicles could not reach them. The only way to get to them was from the air, carried out by a special rescue team in the Alps. Meanwhile, people wondered how the 2 women ended up on the steep slope and immediately began sharing their observations. Some hikers saw them walking with a man on the trail. But where had he gone? When one of the girls was brought into the helicopter, she was seen moving. It was Kelsey Chang. Her fall was broken by the massive branches of a tree, which saved her life. The mountain rescuers lifted Eva Liu to the top, while the shocked tourists watched with their mouths open. As soon as Kelsey was in the helicopter, she immediately said that a man had pushed them both off the cliff and had previously tried to assault Eva. All exits of the hiking trail were immediately sealed off. 25 emergency vehicles were dispatched to the scene. The suspect fled the scene but was soon captured after a large-scale police operation and brought to the police station in the neighboring town of Füssen. Identifying the perpetrator was not difficult because Eva Liu made sure he did not escape justice. His face was literally marked by the woman's fingernails, covered in bright red scratches, making him stand out in the crowd. Kelsey survived the 50-meter fall. Branches of a tree had cushioned the impact, helping her survive. The young woman suffered only minor, non-life-threatening injuries, just a few bruises and scratches and a bleeding superficial head wound. Kelsey was otherwise fine and was discharged from the hospital on Saturday. Eva Liu landed a few meters away from her friend, flat on the ground, but her fall trajectory was slightly different. There was no tree to prevent her from hitting the rocky cliffside. That was the difference between life and death. When the rescuers arrived, Eva was unresponsive. She was taken to the hospital, but died later that night. Eva was only 21 years old. She remained in the hospital morgue while her parents flew in from another continent, pick up their daughter's body, and bring it back to the United States. The family brought Eva's body home on Father's Day, June 18, 2023. Her father said it was the most painful day of his life. The greatest injustice was that German prisoners probably lived better than the average free American citizen. They serve their time in rooms that resemble hotel rooms rather than prison cells. They sleep on regular beds, and guards are instructed to knock before entering the prisoners' rooms. It is forbidden to eavesdrop on prisoners' phone calls, as this is considered a violation of privacy laws. Some are even allowed to leave the prison to spend time with their families, depending on the severity of their crime. Most German prisons are more like holiday homes with some restrictions. This was also the case for Troy, a man who intentionally threw 2 innocent young women off a cliff, one of whom died. The man was arrested and charged with premeditated murder, attempted murder, harassment. Instead of being extradited to his homeland and serving time in an American prison, this man will enjoy all the benefits of civilization in Germany, because the crime took place in this country. Germany also has very strict privacy laws when it comes to court proceedings. For this reason, the suspect's data were kept confidential. However, once the name of the alleged perpetrator became known in the USA, journalists pounced on his family, trying to get information about this man. Relatives mostly refused to comment, and acquaintances and classmates described him as a strange, withdrawn, and very quiet guy who did not show aggression. So what could have driven him to attack young women? There are still many rumors on the internet about Troy's abnormal behavior towards Asian women. Apparently, he felt superior to them and prioritized his own desires, deciding that the students should be submissive to him. For some reason, he treated women of other races like lifeless objects, dolls, and if they dared to resist, simply discarded them as if they did not matter. The police are currently looking for all video recordings of the incident. Since many visitors to Neuschwanstein are foreign tourists, it may take a long time to gather information. Officially, the motives for the attack have not yet been confirmed, as the details of the incident are still being reconstructed. But no matter how the case ends, nothing will bring back the life of the young, promising Eva Liu. Talented young woman, and a wonderful friend. Her loss will leave a lasting wound in the souls of not only her parents, all who knew her. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourself.